West joins us there.
Good evening. How are you doing, Greta?
Very well. So tax weapons of mass destruction. What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, Greta, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. When you look at using the tax code to truly destroy our economy, we've seen in the last year 0.4%, 1.0, 1.3, and 3% GDP growth. We just got the numbers of 2.2% GDP growth for January through March. But what you continue to hear about is that we're going to allow the Bush-Obama tax rates to expire, which means that our small business owners will see an increase in their taxes. They operate as subchapter S and LLCs. We hear the talk about this Buffett rule, which does nothing for our debt and deficit, but all it does is take capital gains tax from 15% up to 30%. But automatically, you're going to have a raise in the capital gains tax to 25.8%. You have dividends taxes going from 15% to 43.4%. You have the death tax. The exemption, the minimum exemption, will drop from $5 million down to $1 million, and the rate will go from 35% to 55%. And we know we have the highest corporate business tax rate in the world. So what you're talking about is exactly what the CBO said a week ago, is that the fiscal year 2013 Obama budget plan for the next 10 years will have an adverse effect on our economy. So it will be a destructive nature upon our economy.
But if you look at, there's another aspect of it. I mean, look, I suspect, if I'm so bold to speak for the American people, that they're feeling pretty gamed by the tax code. First of all, it's incomprehensible. There are, according to Simpson Bowles, 3,300, they call it earmarks in the tax code, which are things that put in the tax code because of special interest. If you look at sort of the wealthy people in the country, what they're paying, and I picked three people. I picked the Obamas. They paid 23%. The Romneys paid about 15% this year, and the Bidens paid 30%. So you've got three very well in the upper 1%, but they're paying vastly different rates because of the board game of the tax code. Then you've got the fact that they had the House, the Senate, and the White House, and there was no change in the tax code. No effort to reform it. I mean, the nation had a chance. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, there was a chance there.
You're absolutely right, and that's one of the things when you look at the House GOP budget that was passed earlier this month. We talked about reforming that tax code. We talked about going away from those 6 tax brackets down to 2, 25% and 10%. We're in the process right now of looking at the exemptions that we can eliminate, simplifying that tax code, going to minimal deductions, and taking the corporate business tax rate down to 25%, and possibly eliminating dividends tax and seeing what we could do to either keep capital gains tax where it is, or reduce it, or eliminate it completely, because that's very important for investment in this country. But that's not something that you hear coming from this administration, and definitely not something you hear coming from the Senate. So we are talking about how we can reform this 67,000-page tax code, because you're right, when you look at all the exemptions and deductions, it is counterproductive. But we don't need to talk about these exorbitant tax raises, which will be the largest tax increase the American people will have ever seen come next January 2013.
Well, I think the American people, and if anyone gets Senator Tom Coburn's book, which comes out next week, and I've actually had an advanced copy and read it, called The Debt Bomb, I think the American people will be quite disturbed. It talks about more than just the tax code, but just sort of all the missed opportunities, that the fact that people are more interested in their careers here in Washington than they are really in doing the right thing, and doing something about this tax code so that people can even begin to understand it would be a real first start. But it is so enormously complicated that I imagine you're frustrated by it, sir.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated about it. As a matter of fact, today, after we finished our votes, I gave a floor speech for about 45 minutes about our history of taxation in America, and how we need to reform our tax code, and the fact that we're heading in the wrong direction. So I came here to present the right type of principle solutions. Reforming that tax code is one of the important parts to restoring economic security here in the United States of America. But seemingly that's not something that we have a willing partner to confront in the Senate side, and definitely from the administration.
Congressman, thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure, Greta.
Coming up was the GSA's